Hello and welcome to the Jet Report. What is going on? I am Matt O'Leary, looking slightly different today with the setup. So, just wanted to let you know we had some audio issues yesterday. We switched the programs that we used a little bit. I am working on figuring out what the best fix is to get the chat upright and good to go. I could make this bigger, but it's going to look a little preposterous if I stretch it out. Let's see. I'll do it live on here. Yeah, look at that. That's going to look way too stretched out. I might just minimize this completely and just read off the chats and worry about that another time. But I appreciate you hanging out with me. It should sound a little bit better today. We're going to minimize that. We don't need that at the moment. Again, I will read off chats and figure out a workaround on that. Yeah, I already see a comment in here saying it sounds great today. I think it was an issue with my old streaming service that I used, and I switched streaming services today. Let me know in the comments, either in the live chat right now or after the fact. I appreciate it, guys, and thank you for sticking with me. But wanted to mention we have a new sponsor for the Jet Report. It is Underdog Fantasy. Use my promo code Matt. The link to sign up is the pinned comment in the chat. Underdog is a ton of fun. I just started playing it. You could do a whole bunch of different things on it. You have like daily fantasy stuff. They have drafts before the season started. And then, well, really a whole bunch of different stuff, actually. The daily fantasy, the player head-to-heads. It's a whole lot of fun. Make sure to check it out. Link is down below in the description, and it is also the pinned comment as well. So thank you so much, guys, for hanging with me. Today, we're going to talk some Mike White as he is back, and I want to get into just, kind of the overall, the overall everything that we need to see from the offense with Mike White back. I think the offense is going to be amped up as expected with Mike White coming back because let's face it, I mean, we don't necessarily it stinks that the number 2 pick is being outperformed by someone like Mike White, but you just got to do it, man. He is back, and I think he gives the Jets the best chance to win football games. And yeah, so here we go. This is what he's done so far this year against Chicago. Obviously, the big game, 22 with 28, 78.5 completion percentage, 315 yards, 3 touchdowns. Against Minnesota, the numbers went down slightly, 31 of 57, 54.39 completion percentage. Still threw for 369 yards, had some really big-time throws in that game on 4th down. Threw a couple of picks, one directly off Corey Davis's hands, and the other was at the end of the game. They're trying to force something. I get it. It didn't work, but I understand why they were trying to force the ball. You have to make a play. You can't take a sack on 4th down there. And then against Buffalo, I thought it was a gutsy performance, guys. And I know you guys did as well. 27 of 44, 61.36 completion percentage, 268 yards in that one. And again, he had to leave the game multiple times and bring this back. It's just you got to love the guts that he showed. And I think, as I said, he gives the Jets a better chance to win compared to Zach Wilson at this point. And the Jets are very much so alive for a playoff spot. We talked about it earlier on the channel. You have a really realistic shot. If you win your next 2 games, New England has to lose just one of those games over their next 2, and the Jets would be in, especially if they beat Miami the final week of the year. That is really going to be the key. I think that's going to be a big one in order for the Jets to get this one done. Divisional opponents obviously matter a ton. But I really think that the Jets can take care of business over the next 2. And I feel a lot more confident in them taking care of business due to the fact that they have Mike White starting these games over the next 2. I think the offense looked much more in sync. They could try to get the ball down the field a little bit more with some more consistency. There were throws that Zach was just unfortunately flat out missing that Mike White makes with regularity. And this should, in theory, get the defense to back off a little bit. If that's the case, then I think that should open up the run game, which is unfortunately kind of been struggling a little bit over the last few weeks. We know with Breece Hall just how good this running back unit was and how effective the run game was. But unfortunately, once he went down, Michael Carter's kind of underachieved this year. Bam Knight started out hot, has kind of struggled a little bit. James Robinson's kind of been a wash outside of the Buffalo game, but overall, the offensive line obviously plays a factor in that too. But I think vibes are completely different now. It's crazy. After the loss to Jacksonville, it very much so felt like that season was over. This season was over. And maybe I prematurely did my mock draft video, but you know what? I was in a dark place after that game. I was down in the dumps and I put it out. I put a Twitter poll out or a tweet out saying, "Do you guys want a mock draft tomorrow?" And the far majority said yes. Um, yeah, so I did one of those. It was fun. But now we are right back into the mix talking about the New York Jets and the push for the playoffs, a very realistic push for those playoffs as well. I appreciate it. So let's get into some of these comments again. I don't know if I could really flash them up on screen. I guess we could do that. It looks a little it looks a little stretched like that. If I make it smaller, are you guys gonna kill me? Do we maybe get that? We live with something like this for now, for today, and we'll get it fixed for tomorrow. But I want you guys to be up on here. I'll create a better overlay for this, but we are working things out, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you guys sticking with me. But let's go through some of these comments in here. Ryder and Talons PA says meaningful football in January. Let's do this. Hell yeah, man. I absolutely love seeing that. We got Frankie says Mike White is about to lead us and be a Jet legend. Hell yeah. If they are able to be a playoff team led by Mike White, if he's the one who ends the drought, build the statue in MetLife, man. I love it. Good stuff. That makes me happy. I hope he does it. Sergeant CVO says Mike White for president and then Gary V for owner. Yeah, Gary V has talked a lot about wanting to be the owner on this team, right? Absolutely feels that way. Scott Wilson says Gary V said he would want to draft the 7th rounder. Not down with that. Yeah, let's let the football guys do the football things. I think that's completely reasonable and fair to ask at this point. Nick Russo says the whole team's adrenaline levels will be up with White at quarterback. Yeah, there's, like it or not, there's been a different response, with Mike White at quarterback and with Joe Flacco or Zach Wilson. There's been a noticeable difference. And I think, with Mike White this week, Sergeant CVO saying 425, 4 touchdowns. I don't know if it's going to be that much, but can you go maybe 65 completion percentage, about 275 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, no picks? I think that's a realistic ask and a reasonable ask. And I absolutely think that's something that he could obtain. MM Morris says mock draft, O-line, safety, linebacker. Yeah, that's what it feels like, right? I think that's going to be the way that they go. They got to need a tackle, especially maybe a center, depending on what they need to do with Connor McGovern. Guard could potentially be a need if they move on from Laken Tomlinson, who's massively underachieved, which is unfortunate, but that's the reality of the situation. Oh no, Sergeant CVO says Freeze be mad it rubbed off on you. Hopefully it stabilized a little bit. It looks, again, I think that this streaming service is going to be the one over what I was using. So I just got to work some kinks out, but we'll get there. Oreo says, is there anyone on the team you do not want to see back next season other than Mann, Davis, and Lawson? I mean, Laken Tomlinson, I feel like is someone who is climbing up that list for a lot of people, understandably so. That's a really tough one. Is there anybody else who I don't want to see on this team next year? There's really not anybody who's jumping out that's as an obvious choice than the ones that you just listed off. I'm going to say no. JK says they need average quarterback play to be a double-digit win team next year. All we ask for is average. Yeah, really. It's not asking a whole lot. It's sad that the bar is set so low, but just think if this team got average quarterback play, they at least have 3 or 4 more wins at this point. Isn't that wild? They would more than likely be a 10-win team or an 11-win team right now if they had average quarterback play the entire way. JK says, "Do you think Lawson will take a pay cut or just get cut and go somewhere else after this year?" I like Carl Lawson. I kind of am rooting for him to take a pay cut and stay. Um, Number one, I think it was tough for him coming back from the injury, and I think he had some nice moments. He just hasn't really been able to do it consistently enough, again, which is a little bit unfortunate. But um, I think if they did decide to just cut him and move on, I would understand because of the cap number. But I like him, so if he's down to restructure, why not? Flacco is a good answer. People are saying, and for the ones who's someone I don't want to see on the team next year, yeah, Joe Flacco. Some people are saying Zach, and I get that one. That's a tough one for sure. Scott Wilson says, best thing about our superstar defense players is Sauce and Q is they are clutch. Come through on third downs at the end of the games. Got to have it situations. Yeah, I mean, Quinn Williams has 12 sacks on the year, and so many of the 12 feel like they have been massive for this football team. They've come in big spots. He's been great for this Jets team. I think they need to figure out a way to get him to stay in green and white going forward and long term. Campione says our backup quarterback White is playing our former quarterback Gino while we are rooting for another former quarterback Bridgewater to beat the Patriots. At the same time, our previous quarterback Sam Darnold is making a playoff run. Yeah, it's it's crazy. The revolving door of Jets quarterbacks, I get rearing their ugly head. I guess that's one way to put it, right? It doesn't feel like, or it does feel like that they're all involved somehow, some way. I'm happy that Sam Darnold is playing good football right now. I tweeted it out earlier today. I don't think it's wise to discuss a reunion with Sam Darnold. And no, it wasn't crazy to move on with him after his third year in the league. When you had to make a decision on his fifth year option, and when you had the number two pick, yes, it didn't work out with Zach Wilson, unfortunately. But if they did decide to run it back with Sam Darnold, you'd be dealing with a quarterback who's missed time now in all 5 years that he's been in the league. Again, wishing him well in Carolina. That'd be a great story if they make the playoffs. So hopefully Sammy D pulls that off. Richard says, "Is it just me or does Strevler look like if Tebow and Fitzpatrick had a tattooed kid?" A little bit, yeah, right. His play style is probably more like Tebow. Looks wise, definitely a little bit more like Fitzpatrick. Jingle Dub says, "If Wilson wasn't the number two pick, things would have been a lot different." Yeah, I suppose that's the case. If they decided to go a different direction, it stinks that it hasn't worked out. There's a lot that Joe Douglas has done that I've liked. That looks like a big whiff right now, and it's tough. They are in a position next year to add in some talent though. Oh, Lozano says, laugh at the Finns for spending all those picks and money just to end up with the same record as last year. Yeah, we can't laugh yet because they still have a chance to knock the Jets out. So I'm going to hold off on the gloating for right now. Nick Russo says, I would give Quinn anything. I really like him. But in the back of my head, I hate it when guys go off in contract years. I can't help but worrying it will not happen again. Technically, not a contract year. He did have his fifth year option picked up, so he is under contract for next year. But I understand the fear. He is due an extension though. They don't necessarily have to sign him because he is under contract for next year. Sergeant CVO says Mac Jones for prison. Yeah, Mac's been a little bit dirty. I don't love what we've seen from Mac Jones there and his tripping, getting his throwing his body down at people's knees. It's not right. Darren says Garrett Wilson 150 plus yards and two touchdowns. That would be fantastic if we see that. Garrett Wilson is so close to 1,000 yards. He is 4 yards away from 1,000 yards. 71 catches, 996 yards, 4 touchdowns. It'd be nice to see him get a couple more touchdowns before the season comes to a close. But having a Jets receiver go over 1,000 yards as a rookie, man, that is big stuff. Oreo says, I think going forward, teams are going to be cautious, putting too much stock into pro days. Zach will be the cover boy for that. No, that's not why they drafted him. I hate that argument. There was stuff there before the pro day. They were obviously interested in him before that. They didn't draft him for the pro day throw. They drafted him for all the stuff that they saw on film before that. We can't pretend that that really changed it that much. It didn't. Ev says, want to hope, but the Jets have a way to lose in the most heartbreaking ways. Kev, yes, that is true. Unfortunately, this team could be different, and we are riding that Mike White train, baby. Brian Bogan says, is there anyone on the roster beyond Zach and the expected players that you would be absolutely shocked if the Jets traded or moved on from? I get so. Quinnen would be one, I would suppose. I think he's going to be sticking around. Any of the guys that they just drafted, shocked if they moved on from. Kind of a controversial one to some. CJ Mosley. I feel like some they just want CJ Mosley gone. I don't think they move on from CJ Mosley. I guess that's a more realistic option. Michael Carter is someone who I've seen fans say could be on the trade block or, being moved. I don't see that as all that likely. Elijah Moore, I know early on requested a trade and people wanted to run him out of town, but I don't think he's going anywhere. Those would be some good ones for sure. Yeah, as Hawk says, Zach Wilson had 43 touchdowns, 3 instant 4,000 yards in his last year. That's why we drafted him. Yeah, it wasn't the pro day. Sergeant CVO says, just made a major life decision. Sauce or Garrett jersey? Went with Sauce. Okay, there you go. I think you're good either way. I picked up a Garrett Wilson jersey earlier this year. Sauce Gardner, I think, would be a very safe choice also. Kev says, I never want to hear a media rave about off-platform throws. I'll always think of Zach Wilson talking off-platform. Yeah, he's definitely one that will come to mind. Hawk says, do you think CJ is going to be willing to restructure now that he's a Pro Bowler? Yeah, it doesn't really – it kind of just moves the guaranteed money up, these restructures. It's not really – it's kind of just changing around when the money is coming to you. The best way that I saw that explained was on Travis and Jason Kelsey's podcast. Travis Kelsey talked about restructuring. Bill says we drafted Zach because we can't evaluate the quarterback position. Like there wasn't a million other people and organizations that liked Zach Wilson as well. Oreo says, if the Jets make the playoffs, how are you going to be celebrating? I guess I'll hold off sending the Hennessy. Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to be celebrating. I'm going to be in a very good mood. I can tell you that for sure. I don't have anything planned. I think whatever comes out, whatever happens, happens. Brian Bogan, he's a member of the channel. You could do so as well by hitting the join button down below. He says what we learned is that Zach has an incredible arm when there's no pass rush and there's no DBs covering the receivers. Jingle Dub says if Mike White takes us to the playoffs, do the Jets pay him going forward? I think they will bring him back. Even if they were to bring in a different veteran, I think you're likely to see Mike White come back in some capacity. I don't think there's going to be much of a market for him outside of the Jets. I think they bring him back at 10 to 12. I think we said yesterday somewhere in that 10 to $12 million range. I think that's probably your most likely scenario here. Jabrams41 says the young core is so good, still crazy. They're only 1 to 2 years in the league. Team is legit a quarterback and a consistent left tackle away from sustainable success. All the young guys are premium position players. This is true. There's a lot to really be excited about on this New York Jets team going forward. And unfortunately, injuries did play a big, big role in the Jets' struggles at times this year, whether it be, losing Fant and losing Mekhi Becton and Brees Hall and AVT. Those are really key players, and it took a number on this team. It really did. Sean Fennick says, when is Becton coming back? At some point this summer, I would anticipate. He was done for the year, so at some point, pre-training camp, I think is when you're going to be able to see updates. He has been with the team to an extent, looking around, and I guess rehabbing, which is a positive. You like to see him back with the team. Brian Bogan says, to the people saying Zach went 5-3, do you think that Mike White would not have won those games? I can tell you he would have won those, and the three Zach Wilson lost. That's how you tell the difference between them. Yeah, I think quarterbacks aren't or win-loss isn't a quarterback stat. That's completely fair to say. I did not like that argument. If the argument was you wanted to see 2 years from him before you made a decision, that's fine. I think we've kind of reached that point though, and like I said, I'm glad that Mike White is coming back. To say the least, I think it'll be positive that he's back for this offense. Jack of all trades says, will we get Iowa linebacker Jack Campbell? He is absolutely someone that I like. I haven't been as in tune to college prospects at this point yet because of the Jets' success. I only did one mock draft so far, and he was someone that I really like. He's a tackling machine. That's a position that the Jets are going to need. I don't know if they attack it in the first round. I don't think he is going in the first round. Probably at this point in the process, a second or third round pick. We'll see as it gets closer, but I do like him. And I think linebacker is absolutely something the Jets should look to improve on in the offseason, specifically through the NFL draft. Jabrams 41 says, we have our Gurley, Donald Ramsey, and Cup. We need our Stafford and Whitworth, so close yet far away. Yeah, I mean, it's obvious what the Jets need help with, but landing that is easier said than done, as we've seen watching this team for years and years and years. It's your boy says, in my opinion, the Jets win the Ravens game with Mike White. He's way better at reading the field than able to stretch out plays, gives them a much larger chance to win. Yeah, Joe Flacco really wasn't competitive in that game. Joe Flacco started 3 games for this team. He had a really, really good half against the Browns in the second half to get them back and win in a miraculous fashion, but he did not look good against the Ravens, and he did not look good against the Bengals. Brother man, Brother Nam61, I think, says, what Madden rating do you think is fair? Right now, he's severely underrated, so I'm adjusting him. Consider Zach as a 71. I'm thinking 77, 78 for Mike White. Yeah, I'm not really a Madden guy. Haven't played in a few years, but I would think somewhere in the mid 70s is probably fair. 77, 78 seems probably a touch high. I'd have to look at all the other ratings, but somewhere around the 25th, whatever the 25th best quarterback is, somewhere in that spot. Expert dealer says, I want to believe the Jets are winning this last 2 games, but anytime I raise my hope on my team, they always let me down. So for now, I would think they not, but if they go in, it's a plus. That's one way to look at it, and I get that. You don't want to necessarily get your hopes up and have them come crashing down. So I can't say that I blame you on that one. I really can't. But my advice would be to do your best to remain positive. I think it's worth it. Dan New York says, if White wins next 2 games and plays well in the playoffs, he's the guy. If not, sign him as a backup and get Carr, Jimmy G, or Minshew. Yeah, it's going to be really key to see what happens over the next 2 games and potentially into the playoffs. Next year is a big year for this Jets team. So, 2023 is a big year for Douglas and Salah. We'll see how they attack the quarterback position going forward. Brian says, "Don't concern, but I'm worried that any free agent quarterback might be seduced over to Miami. If Tua is done, they can steal a good vet from under us." Yeah, he's had a ton of injuries, man. I feel for the guy. Um, it stinks. You never want to see a guy get hurt. Um, that's potentially true. And as for the Jets, they too, I think both are um, good options. It's a fair concern. Kev says, "Any good Christmas presents you received? How would you ask for a receipt to return a gift?" Question mark. I got. I'm not gonna put it up yet because I kind of just got this new one behind me. But my girlfriend got me a neon sign with my Matt O'Leary NY logo. Um, I in the next few months will more than likely be moving studio spots, so I don't want to necessarily rearrange this too much just to completely move in the next few months. So that's gonna stay on hold for now, but I can't wait to put that up in the new spot. Let's see what else we got. Oreo says, "Madden is trash. Same graphics for the last 5 years. I pledge not to play EA until they play till EA gets the rights back. 2K5 is the GOAT." Yeah. Um, ESPN 2K5 was a great game. I love it. Terrell Owens on the cover, I believe. Jingle Dub says, "There's no way we get another quarterback in the draft, right? Unless it's later and they aren't meant to start." I don't see them taking quarterback in the first 2 rounds. I think I would like to personally try to fill spots like offensive line and safety and linebacker, and then maybe take a mid-round guy to develop. But I don't think you're taking a first or a second round quarterback in this year's draft. Dan NY says, "Minor detail, but I'm loving the recent positive vibes coming from Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson. I have a feeling they're starting to see themselves as our X and Y for the future." Yeah, those two are going to be here for the next few years, as they should. I think they're both talented players. As we mentioned earlier on the stream, Garrett Wilson's going to go over 1,000 yards as a rookie, which is pretty much unheard of for the Jets. It's never happened before, and they haven't had a 1,000-yard receiver since 2015 when both Eric Decker and Brandon Marshall went over the mark. So really good stuff. Brian Bogan says, "Can't wait to see playoff content for Matt O'Leary and why." Yeah, it hasn't happened yet, man. I've been doing this for a while and have not done playoff content. Last time the Jets made the playoffs, I was in 10th grade, 15. I was 15, so I didn't have my permit, driver's license, didn't graduate high school, obviously. There's a lot of stuff that didn't happen in my life by that point. Then that's what happened over the last 12 years. It's kind of crazy to think how much has changed since the last time the Jets made the playoffs. Scott V says, "I wonder when Hendon Hooker goes after his injury." He scares me. I would personally not want to take that risk on Hooker. I know that he's a talented guy. He's going to be 25 when he's drafted, and he has already had 2 major injuries. That scares me. If I'm just being completely honest with you, I would probably pass on him. Oreo says, "If Jets make the playoffs, I expect you to be doing a big giveaway. Maybe playoff tickets or home game tickets next year. Stop acting like you don't have it like that, Matt." All love. Oh God. Yeah, we could do something fun. We got to be able to do something fun for the playoffs. I don't know if it'll be tickets, but we could do something. NSC says first round offensive tackle for sure. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I think it's super important to add that. Johnny C says, "Do you think Steve Weatherford could be ready for Sunday?" No, he got, how many times did he get hurt? right before the playoffs. Remember when Jay Feely had to punt because Steve Weatherford couldn't go in a playoff game? Dan NY says, who are you willing to cut on the O-line in 23 for cap space? Lakin, let George Fant walk. Those two seem like the obvious choices. Anyone else I don't think is really all that likely. Brian says, since Mike White is starting again, we should probably should get the rookie of the week now, just so we're on the same page. Yeah, I would think Garrett Wilson is going to have a really good chance. The first time Mike White started for the Jets this year, Garrett Wilson had 95 yards and 2 touchdowns. So maybe we have another big time performance like that. I think that would really be ideal for this football team. Let's see what else we're working in here. I have time for a few more before we dip out of here for the day. Jose Rodriguez says, who are your top 3 New York Jets quarterbacks? Take your time. We got so many. LOL. Yeah, top 3 all time. Namath 1. And then Testaverde and Pennington. Ken O'Brien 4, something like that. Ones that I've seen, I'd probably go Chad, Vinny. I didn't see prime Vinny. So I don't know if I could really count him, but I will. Chad, Vinny, and playoff Mark Sanchez will be my 3. Joe says, take a deep look at Hooker's tape. He is Watson worth a late 3rd gamble. I don't think he's going to be. I think he's going to go earlier than that. I think someone's going to take him in the 2nd round. And I'm not willing to take that risk on a 25-year-old who's been hurt a couple of times. Hawk says Namath, Testaverde, and Sanchez, honestly, as his top 3. All right. At this point, I just hope my kids get to see a championship, and I'm not even old yet. Oh, don't lose hope. I like this staff and regime. I think they could figure it out. Brian Bogan says defense has to be excited to get more than a 3 and out before they have to go back on the field. That's true. I think they'll be able to move it. Caden Smith says, Matt, what are your thoughts on the interior offensive line after this season? Tomlinson and AVT will be the starters, but McGovern most likely will walk this year. I want John Michael Schmitz, center from Minnesota. Okay. I'm not sold that Tomlinson is necessarily going to be coming back. AVT, I think, does. I think you can bring McGovern back. And maybe you're looking for interior offensive line in the draft or free agency, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that McGovern is likely walking. There's a chance they're going to have a lot of turnover on the offensive line, and you want some stability. So bringing back AVT and McGovern might be the way. JDP says, Matt, if you're the Niners and Purdy seems to be the guy and leads them to a deep playoff run, what do you do with Trey Lance? Great question. And then is there a chance one of them hits the market, maybe a future JD prospect? I would think they might let Jimmy G go and rock with Brock Purdy and Trey Lance. That's what I think you might do. Kev says, get rid of the cap and get Cohen to own the Jets. That'd be nice. Oreo, amazing, says Hackenberg, Vic, and Petty are his top 3. Amazing. I can't believe we watched Bryce Petty, start games for this team. Hennessy says offensive tackle is the bigger need because Fant isn't coming back and Brown is old. That I agree with. And you can't bank on Mekhi Becton coming back to be your starter after missing 2 years. John asks, if you were Zach Wilson, would you request a trade in the offseason? If so, where would you want to be traded to? I don't think so. I think I'd want to be like the good soldier, especially after some of the comments that he made earlier this year. I think he needs to get himself right mentally. Um, and if they figure out a trade partner, so be it. But I think you got to come in with the mindset, or I'm just going to make myself better, and not like a trade request comes off as a little bit selfish. So um, I would understand why he would do it, but my mindset would be I have to get myself right, and whatever happens, happens, kind of a thing. But I get it. Then asked, what if we send Zach and picks for Jordan Love? I don't. I'm not. That's too risky for me on Jordan Love. He hasn't really played that much. I'm really all good there. Caden says, Matt, is Corey Davis gone after this year? If so, would you like the Jets to replace between the draft or free agency? I would say free agency is where you could add a wide receiver. You just need like a middle tier guy, a vet, maybe a bigger body, which I guess is kind of what Corey Davis fits, but he just gets hurt way too much and is a little too inconsistent for my liking. Hennessy asked, do we move on from Elijah Moore this year? I don't think so. I think Elijah Moore is absolutely coming back. He seems happy. He seems rejuvenated. He's a part of their plans. I believe him. And he follows it up with Elijah Moore should be on the field more than Barrios, in my opinion. You're not going to get argument out of me. You're really not. I think Braxton Barrios is kind of taking a step back as a receiver this year, and honestly as a returner too. But Moore is a much talented player. He should see the field more. Joe Musa says 2023 quarterback Jimmy G, Mike White, Chris Stravler. That's honestly probably pretty realistic. Scott V says, I'd like to keep Moore, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's traded. I would. The U, thank you for your super chat. He comes in and says, can Zach Wilson go to the XFL to work out his kinks? Maybe. I mean, I don't think he would get cut by the Jets, but I guess crazier things have happened. Yeah, wouldn't that be nuts if Zach Wilson's in the XFL after, you know, a little over 2 years after being drafted second overall? That'd be pretty insane. Wild. Kev Chada says trade Zach Wilson for Trey Lance. That's a one project for another project. I don't think that's going to happen. Hennessy says we're trading Zach for a third and fourth rounder next year. I think that's the best we can get for him. That probably sounds about on par for where he is right now. Unfortunately, stock has kind of plummeted. Scott V says he would be sick in the XFL. Oh, that's sad. Caden Smith, based on this current roster and taking away free agent signings, what would be your number one position you want to draft? Offensive tackle. It's not really particularly close. I think that is the biggest need for this New York Jets team for next year. Dwayne Brown was a nice kind of stopgap option. George Fant is going to walk. Beyond that, I don't really know what the future holds for the rest of the group. Drunken Disorderly said, I saw a Sports Illustrated article saying JD failed to build the O-line. Stupidest thing I've seen all day. Opening day lineup was supposed to be a top 5 O-line. Yeah, it's not exactly fair. I don't know how you could possibly predict the number of offensive linemen that were going to go down. And there were some really good depth options too, like landing Max Mitchell and having him being an okay starter as a fourth rounder was a win. Finding Nate Herbig and having him be an okay starter for a little bit was a nice win. Dwayne Brown wasn't supposed to start for this team, and he did. They were able to overcome a lot this year on the offensive line, so I'm not going to put that on him. Kev says trades Zach Wilson to the Panthers. It's been a while since we fleeced them. Yeah, I think they're just going to hang up the phone now anytime Joe Douglas calls them. Hawk says, is it true we're changing the MetLife turf as soon as the season is over? I don't know if it's going to be as soon as the season's over, but it is true that for the start of next season, there will be new MetLife Stadium turf. That is confirmed. And Hennessy comes in and says we need our own stadium. That is for sure a fact. So I think that's going to do it for me today. Thank you guys for sticking with me. I like this new setup. I just got to work some kinks out for tomorrow. We'll be back. New episode of Just Jets drops tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. You can still call in and leave a voicemail, but that's going to do it for me for now. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. I'm Matt O'Leary. Thank you to Underdog Fantasy, the sponsor. Check it out. Link is the pinned comment and also link down below in the description. I'm Matt O'Leary, and I'll catch you next time.